Hello everybody, it's Root Beer. I'm recording a deck profile in the dark because there is too much glare on my sleeves when I have the overhead lights on. Fun. Today we're going to be talking about Battle Sisters because they just got some new support in the new clan selection, so, let's talk about them. First, we have our starter, of course. I'm using Ichibiyoshi because I bought a whole bunch of Tsukuyomi stuff as well. I'm just kind of in this phase where I've decided that I'm going to be the OTT guy on this channel again. And I still have my goal of making Bushiroad acknowledge us so that I can reveal the next OTT stride. So I also had a copy of Lozenge Magus lying around, but it was the old one that didn't have the errata, so I didn't want to deal with the fact that I didn't have the quick shield text, so we're going with Ichibiyoshi. Then we have 4 copies of Kusanagi. He's the crit sentinel for OTT. We're going with this because obviously our whole thing is just stacking criticals and doing big damage, so we want to run 12 crits. And we already have protect gifts for actual perfect guards. So since the meta has a lot of aggressive multi-attack decks that can get some pretty big numbers, Kusanagi just being a 30k shield comes up. And, of course, we're just trying to get to 12 crits. And then I'm running both Psychic Bird and Oracle Guardian Nike because I like annoying people. 4 copies of Ginger because look at her art, she is swole as fuck. And then for our heal triggers, I'm going with 3 of the heal guards and 1 regular heal. So I saw some topping deck lists for V doing this because as powerful as the heal guards are in the early game, they can really help shut down some turns with either the 10k or just mitigate a big swing with the crit -2. They do start to fall off once you get to grade 3 because, you lose those extra effects and now it's just a vanilla 15k shield. So, I like having the 1 copy of the regular heal just for that extra shield value. It does come up, especially with how powerful V-decks can be. Alright, next we have, for our main deck, we have 3 copies of Battle Sister Baumkuchen. So, this is like a German pastry, which is why I pronounced it all weird. So, Baumkuchen is a layer cake that's cooked on a spit. So what you do is you pour like a thin layer of batter onto the spit, and as it's going around, it starts browning, and once the first layer is cooked, you pour another one on, and you keep going and going until you have this like round cake. So there's this very distinct ring pattern that it has. It looks like tree rings, which is where it gets the name from, according to Wikipedia. Apparently, it's also very popular in Japan. I actually bought some at a Japanese market once, just because I wanted something to snack on. I think I might have actually just been thinking about Battle Sisters at that time, too. And then, of course, we have 3 copies of Battle Sister Casada. So, Casada is a sponge cake, so it's typically soaked in some sort of fruit juice or a liqueur, and then you layer it with ricotta cheese and candied fruit. And then they put this outside shell of marzipan over it. And then, of course, we have 3 copies of Battle Sister Cocoa. Cocoa is named after the cocoa bean. It's where we get our chocolates from. And then 4 copies of Battle Sister Torrijas. So Torrijas is basically the Spanish version of French toast. So, you take a piece of stale bread, you put it in some sort of custard or batter, and then you fry it off, and it gets topped with like some sort of sugar and cinnamon or like a sweet syrup. And then 4 copies of Battle Sister Trifle. So this is our most important card. She's our win condition. So a trifle is a layered dessert. It's English. So it's typically made with like a layer of sponge, some sort of fruit element, either like fresh fruits or like a jelly or a jam. Then you put like custard and whipped cream, and also like the sponge usually is like with the casada, it's soaked with some sort of like liqueur or fruit juice, or even something like coffee if you wanted something a little more savory in your dessert. And speaking of like coffee and savoriness, we have Battle Sister Mocha. So this is one of the new cards introduced in the recent clan collection. So Mocha is just an espresso drink with chocolate flavoring. You can, of course, make it into a cake, but when you type Mocha into Google, it just tells you that it's an espresso drink. And then we have 4 copies of Battle Sister Shuket. So this card hasn't really come up so far when I've been playing with it. I just haven't really drawn into it very much. But a Shuket is a puff of choux pastry that's topped with sugar. And choux pastry, or pâte à choux, is like this delicate pastry dough that you make with the typical ingredients, butter, egg, water, flour. But instead of adding in a raising agent like baking powder, you instead let the high moisture content steam the pastry so it kind of puffs up. So it can be a little finicky and a little difficult to deal with. And then, of course, I've kind of been thinking that, since Shuket's effect hasn't been coming up very often, that maybe I'll just run 4 copies of Macaron instead, because she's, just a big bunkus. And so Macaron, of course, is a French confectionery. I'm sure you know what they are already, but it is a sweet meringue-based confection that you make with, like, egg whites, icing sugar, granulated sugar, and almond meal. And, they typically have some sort of filling in them. It's basically like a sweet dessert sandwich. And finally, we have our 2 versions of fromage. So fromage is just cheese. Like, when you type the word fromage into Google, you get a Google Translate result that just says cheese. So, you have cheese, and then you have, like, the weird moldy cheese that you left in the sun too long. So yeah, that's our deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it. Anyways, in case you couldn't tell by now, this whole video has just been one big shitpost. Basically what happened is, I started Googling how to pronounce Baumkuchen's name, and then at the same time, of course, it also just turns up actual, like, information and recipes about, like, what Baumkuchen is. And that got me curious about, like, what all of the other Battle Sisters were named for, so I just fell down this Google rabbit hole of, like, looking up all of the pastries and foods that all of these cards were named after, so I've decided to share that with you all. I am also going to have an actual, like, discussion video about Battle Sisters up at the same time, in case you wanted an actual serious video. I do like the deck, and I have a lot to talk about with it, so look forward to that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.